prosperous and dynamic society, then look at Berlin and look at Germany. Look at Chancellor Merkel. Her personal story helps to tell the story of incredible achievement that the German people have embarked on, and I think is something that you should be very proud of. It is not inevitable that we make progress. It requires hard work. Sometimes it may seem as if progress is stalled, but what the history of post-war Germany shows is that strength and determination and focus and adherence to the values that we care about will result in a better future for our children and our grandchildren. And on behalf of the American people, I want to thank the German people. I want to thank Chancellor Merkel for your deep friendship and your steadfast partnership. So, vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, you and the President-elect have very different views on Russia. After your meeting with him last week, can you assure Chancellor Merkel that a Trump administration would also support strong sanctions against Moscow? Similarly, what have you told President Putin about Russia's influence on the U.S. election, and how would you advise European countries to deal with the same threat? And lastly, if I may, would you like to see your friend Chancellor Merkel run for re-election next year? Frau Merkel, eine Frage auf Deutsch.
Pulling out your German, showing off.
Has the American president calmed you in the sense that on the policy of his successor on climate change and Russia, he has allayed your fears? And are you concerned that the common European policy towards Russia will collapse? And after the election of Mr. Trump, would you, as a sign of stability, wouldn't you actually have to declare that you are going to be a candidate again?
Well, I try to make it a rule not to meddle in other people's politics. All I can say is that Chancellor Merkel has been an outstanding partner. And, Chancellor Merkel is perhaps the only leader left among our closest allies that was there when I arrived. So in some ways, we are now the veterans of many challenges over the last 8 years. And although we have not always been in sync on every issue, in terms of our core values, in terms of her integrity, her truthfulness, her thoughtfulness, her doing her homework, knowing her facts, her commitment to looking out for the interests of the German people first, but recognizing that part of good leadership on behalf of the nation requires engaging the world as a whole and participating effectively in multilateral institutions. I think she's been outstanding. So it's up to her whether she wants to stand again, and then ultimately it will be up to the German people to decide what the future holds. If I were here and I were German and I had a vote, I might support her. But I don't know whether that hurts or helps. With respect to Russia, my principal approach to Russia has been constant since I first came into office. Russia is an important country. It is a military superpower. It has influence in the region, and it has influence around the world. And in order for us to solve many big problems around the world, it is in our interest to work with Russia and obtain their cooperation. I think we should all hope for a Russia that is successful, where its people are employed and the economy is growing and they are having good relationships with their neighbors and participating constructively on big issues like climate change. So I've sought a constructive relationship with Russia, but what I have also been is realistic in recognizing that there's some significant differences in how Russia views the world and how we view the world. The values that we talked about, the values of democracy and free speech and international norms and rule of law, respecting the ability of other countries to determine their own destiny and preserve their sovereignty and territorial integrity. Those things are not something that we can set aside. And so on issues like Ukraine, on issues like Syria, we've had very significant differences. And my hope is that the president-elect coming in takes a similarly constructive approach, finding areas where we can cooperate with Russia, where our values and interests align, but that the president-elect also is willing to stand up to Russia where they are deviating from our values and international norms. And I don't expect that the president-elect will follow exactly our blueprint or our approach. But my hope is that he does not simply take a realpolitik approach and suggest that, if we just cut some deals with Russia, even if it hurts people or even if it violates international norms or even if it leaves smaller countries vulnerable or creates long-term problems in regions like Syria, that we just do whatever is convenient at the time. And that will be something that I think we'll learn more about as the president-elect puts his team together. I am encouraged by the president-elect's insistence that NATO is a commitment that does not change, and his full commitment to NATO as the foundation for our international security, I think, is very important. And finally, in terms of my conversations with President Putin, these are conversations that took place before the election. As I indicated, there has been very clear proof that they have engaged in cyber attacks. This isn't new. It's not unique to Russia. There are a number of states where we've seen low-level cyber attacks and industrial espionage and other behavior that we think should be out of bounds. And I delivered a clear and forceful message that although we recognize Russia's intelligence gathering will sometimes take place even if we don't like it, there's a difference between that and them either meddling with elections or going after private organizations or commercial entities, and that we're monitoring it carefully, and we will respond appropriately if and when we see this happening. I do think that this whole area of cyber is something that at an international level we have to work on and develop frameworks and international norms so that we don't see a cyber arms race. A lot of countries have advanced capabilities, and given the vulnerabilities of our infrastructure and our economies to digital platforms, we have to be careful in making sure that this doesn't become a lawless, low-level battlefield. We've started trying to put together some principles that were adopted in the G20, the G7, and